Hello, how you doing, Coach?
This is Jason Light, GM in Tampa. How you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm just watching the draft right now.
Bucs fans, it is finally here. It's like draft day is like Christmas Day for football fans all across the country. I mean, the entire offseason, we're waiting for this moment. We go through the combine, of course, the pro days, the senior bowls before that. And man, we're finally here. It's a really exciting night. Man, we're going to have a lot of fun. We really don't know what's going to go on in this draft. It's a really interesting draft. We know number one is going to be most likely Fernando Mendoza. After that, we really don't know. We know Arvell Reese is in consideration number 2 for the New York Jets. We also know David Bailey is in consideration for the second overall selection. So, number 2 is those two guys, those two premier edge rushers, the top 2 edge rushers in the class. And then after that, at number 3, Arizona, we're hearing Arizona wants to trade back potentially. And if they can't trade back, we could be seeing running back Jeremiah Love be selected 3rd overall. So, guys, really excited here for draft day. We're going to be live for the entire first round of draft day here. And also tomorrow for night number 2. Night number 2 has, of course, round 2 and round 3. I'm extremely excited to go through all this with you guys. Man, oh man, all the analysis, all the reactions. It's going to be a crazy wild night. I'm hearing a lot of trades could potentially happen. This is going to be an awesome draft. It doesn't have necessarily the top talent that other drafts have, the elite talent. But this is kind of a draft where positional value, you could throw that out the window is what we've been hearing. You can see an off-ball linebacker like Sonny Styles be taken potentially in the top 5. A running back being taken in the top 3. We don't have also that premier, top echelon class of quarterbacks as well. So we're just going to see most likely Fernando Mendoza, and then who else is going to be in the first round? We're hearing Ty Simpson could potentially be in the bottom of the first round. And also a wild name that was thrown in yesterday by Tom Pelissero, Carson Beck, quarterback for Miami, could potentially also go in the first round. I don't believe that. I'll believe it when I see it. But man, oh man, if you guys have not done so already, check if you are subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, please make sure you do that. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. So the more subscribers we have, the more things we can do with this channel, the media credentials, all these kinds of things. We're trying to build up Fear the Bay. So if you have not done so already, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you know a Bucs fan that doesn't know about Fear the Bay yet, make sure you send the link to them. Let's get them to subscribe. Also, family members, friends, whoever are your close Tampa Bay Buccaneers allies and friends. All right, so I'm seeing a few comments here. We'll pick some of those up and we'll talk with you guys. Good to see you guys already in the chat here. All right, we're gonna go. Kaylear, what's up, man? You said that you're going to be here for draft night, and we are here. Who do you want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to draft 15th overall? Let me know in the comments, man. We also got Flash Gordon here. Let's read, actually, before this, the wife. Diana, I love you. Thank you for watching. Also, I'm so excited for this draft. Also, we really don't know what's going on throughout this entire night. This is going to be an awesome, amazing experience. And again, first ever live Fear the Bay episode. So this is really cool as well. Let's go here with Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon says, wild idea that just came to me. Trade Baker Mayfield to the Jets for the 2nd overall pick and draft Jeremiah Love. All right, that is a wild scenario. I think you only make that move if you feel like you're not going to be able to extend Baker Mayfield. We know that Jason Light wants to extend Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield and Yaya Diaby are two of the guys who are at the top of his priority list in terms of extensions. But wild trade. But if you don't believe that you're in a Super Bowl window, you can win right now this year, and that you're in kind of like this retooling phase, you could potentially make a move like that. But you think about Bucky Irving already on the football team. They have Kenny Gainwell. How much more is a running back potentially going to add to this team and help you get past the line? We got some more chats here from Flash Gordon. It says, if the Jets don't bite, and assuming they don't take Jeremiah Love with the 2nd overall pick, which is what I do if I were them, then try the Cardinals at 3rd overall. So the Cardinals do want to trade back. I have not heard, anything really of the Buccaneers connected to Jeremiah Love, in any really strong, meaningful way. I do know they met with his RB2, right, from Notre Dame, Jadarian Price, and they talked to him about potentially would he be okay with taking another RB2 role where he's not the main guy and Bucky Irving being the main guy and him just, making do with whatever carries he can come up with. But he said, he's willing to do that. I think, of course, he wants to be the superstar. He wants to be the RB1. I mean, he's been behind Jeremiah Love throughout college, and maybe he wants to go to a team where he could be the RB1. But if he is in a situation like Tampa that already has an established RB1 with Bucky Irving, and he's going to be that RB2, he said he's going to make the most out of his carries. If he gets 10 carries a game, he's going to get 10 yards per carry. He's going to try to make the most out of his opportunities. He's also a guy who's willing to play special teams as well. All right, and one more here by Flash Gordon. He says, I finally figured out who Jeremiah Love reminds me of, Harvey Williams. I do not know who Harvey Williams is. That might be a little bit before my time. But let me know about Harvey Williams if you can here. But we know Jeremiah Love, a complete weapon, a guy who could do it all 3 downs. Great pass catcher. He's kind of a guy like Christian McCaffrey who could be a solid pass catcher for you. Plus, he could do on the ground. I mean, he's the best running back in this class. I believe he's even better than Ashton Genty, who went to the Raiders last year. And then Calliard, you said Messidor is the guy. So all the consensus pick for the Buccaneers number 15 is Messidor going at number 15, or the Buccaneers slightly trading back and picking up Akeem Messidor. I think it is Messidor unless the Buccaneers go BPA, depending on who's on the board. So if a guy like Big Owane, who I had the Buccaneers taking in my mock draft tips, because I do believe Jason Light is going to take best player available if the board allows him to. But Messidor is probably the most likely pick of who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to select at number 15 overall, or if they trade back slightly and still pick up Messidor, get extra maybe day 2 draft pick. All right, because we're waiting here for, Roger Goodell's going to come out. He's going to do his little speech. We might get some more people talking before that. The Raiders are not on the clock yet. So I want to go over Peter Schrager's mock draft here, his latest mock draft, his final mock draft, and see who he has going in the first round. I think Peter Schrager is not necessarily a draft analyst. He is a guy who admittedly, he's not a guy who watches a lot of film, but he's a guy who's very, very connected. He's a guy who talks to the GMs, he talks to the scouts, the coaches, and he's really connected in terms of pay attention to who's going to go in the first round. So let's look at a guy like Jacob Rodriguez, who's a Buccaneers fan favorite. Is he going to go in the first round? Does Peter Schrager have him in the first round? A guy like Malachi Lawrence also, or these guys late first round guys, early second round guys? Let's see what Peter Schrager thinks here. All right, so we have, of course, the first overall selection being Fernando Mendoza. That's an obvious, of course. Now, the question mark at number 2, and Peter Schrager has David Bailey go to number 2. But who goes number 2? Is it is it Arvell Reese? Is it David Bailey? We have to see as the night goes on. But, 2 edge rushers in consideration there. David Bailey, the Jets now, they did cancel their top 30 visit with him. He was going to meet with the team just a few days ago, but they canceled that visit. Is that something that you should read into, or is it just something like, it's just part of the process that you have to cancel a guy? Maybe they have enough on him, but that's an interesting point there. But Peter Schrager believes that David Bailey, even though they canceled his top 30 visit, is still the guy for the Jets. All right, at 3, Peter Schrager goes with running back Jeremiah Love, who Flash Gordon. Of course, you wanted the Buccaneers to trade up to get Jeremiah Love. He is undoubtedly the best running back in this class. He has the Cardinals picking him, and that sounds like that's going to be the pick there. If the Cardinals cannot trade back, then they stick and pick, and it most likely will be Jeremiah Love. Now, the problem is, do you take a running back in the first round this early at number 3 overall if you don't have the offensive line to block for him? And the Cardinals definitely do not have the offensive line to block for him. He's going to be running behind, I don't know what, it's going to be really bad for him maybe the first 2 years as they try to rebuild that offensive line. Outside of Paris Campbell, the left tackle, and the center, I think his name is Fjorhort, they don't have many solid, talented offensive linemen. So instead of going with a guy like, for instance, Noah, Peter Schrager have them taking the running back Jeremiah Love. But I would only take a running back this early if I have a solidified, established, talented offensive line who can make sure that there's going to be running lanes for him to run through. All right, so at number 4 overall, we have the Tennessee Titans selecting Sonny Styles, Peter Schrager. He has Robert Saleh taking an off-ball linebacker, and Sonny Styles is a guy that kind of gets overlooked throughout this whole process. Now, the combine, the numbers, they were comparing him to Calvin Johnson extremely athletic, big, lengthy wide receiver. His numbers were comparable to his in terms of his measurements and his speed and all these kinds of things, his vertical. But ever since the draft or the combine, just we haven't heard much of Sonny Styles being, that still that one of those talented guys in the draft. His buzz has kind of gone down. He's still talented, but the overall hype for him has gone down. But Robert Saleh would get his Fred Warner here, number 4 overall, by selecting Sonny Styles. That's an interesting one. I can also see if he doesn't go to the Tennessee Titans, I can see the New York Giants with John Harbaugh taking him at number 5 overall. Peter Schrager has Arvell Reese, very talented edge rusher / linebacker hybrid, going 5th overall. He's a guy who is not a polished edge rusher. He's a guy who's going to need time to learn how to be a polished edge rusher. Matt Patricia was his defensive coordinator with the Ohio State Buckeyes, and he used him really in multiple ways, but the main way was as an off-ball linebacker next to Sonny Styles, and Caden McDonald being that foundation piece in the front of that line. But he still needs time to develop. And for a team that would be picking him like the Giants, how long, they already have also multiple edge rushers. They took Abdul Carter last year at Penn State. They have Brian Burns, what's his name? Kevin Thibodeau. They have him as well. So they already have a lot of edge rushers. They'll be collecting another edge rusher here. That would be pretty insane, but as many guys as you can have on your team, and the fact that he's a hybrid also, you can use him at inside linebacker. Maybe they view that as a extra value to him. All right, so we have the Cleveland Browns going offensive line here. So everything that I'm hearing from guys, insiders about the Cleveland Browns is they want to take an offensive tackle in round 1. They have 2 picks. They want to take an offensive tackle in the first round, and they also want to take a wide receiver in the first round. And a lot of the buzz is that Jordan Tyson is going to be that first wide receiver taken off the board. We have here by Jay Jones, Jonathan Jones. He says, Jordan Tyson appears to be trending towards being the first wide receiver drafted. The more I talk to folks and the closer it gets to the draft, the more it seems Arizona State's Jordan Tyson will be the first receiver selected tonight. And the problem with Jordan Tyson is all the injuries. The injury history of him is a bit insane. Every single year he suffered a major injury. We can go here through the injury list. In 2022, a torn ACL. So obviously that's a season-ending injury. Now, he suffered that torn ACL in 2022, but he still had to recover the next season, 2023, from that torn ACL. He only played in 3 games in 2023. In 2024, another catastrophic season-ending injury, a broken collarbone. And then last year, he was dealing with a nagging hamstring injury. So every single year, he has not been healthy. Do you feel he's extremely athletic? If you just look at pure talent, if you just were blind to the medicals, he is the most talented wide receiver. Jordan Tyson is in this draft. You look at him versus a guy like Carnell Tate. He's just like, the way he moves, the way he's able to contort his body to the football, the way he runs routes. I mean, he is the most talented wide receiver in this year's draft class. And if teams take him first overall, or the first wide receiver, he's the first wide receiver selected. I mean, that would make sense here. We have another wide receiver being taken here, but it'll be Peter Schrager's first wide receiver, and that is the Washington Commanders taking Carnell Tate. So Jaden Daniels needs additional help. He needs additional firepower, and Carnell Tate will be a guy that you can use to push the ball down the field. He has something like an 85%, I think it's 85.7 contested catch rate. You throw it up, those 50-50 balls, he's going to come down with it. He's not a guy like Mike Evans who's 6'5", 6'6", but he's going to come down with those contested catches. If you want a guy you can push the ball down the field with, Carnell Tate is your guy. So you have them going number 7 overall to the Commanders. We get an NFC South rival here with the New Orleans Saints taking Caleb Downs. So Caleb Downs going number 8 overall. I mean, as the draft continues, you just keep hearing more things that teams, some teams have other safeties above Caleb Downs. Some teams have Traden Stukes, who's a nickel corner / safety above. This is reportedly above Caleb Downs. I think that's a bit insane. He's a bit of a smaller guy, kind of like Antoine Winfield Jr., but he's a guy who is very instinctive. He just understands what's going on around him. He's one of the smartest players, defensive players in this draft class, him and Sonny Styles. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong if you take Caleb Downs. And he's a guy who he said himself, in the pre-draft process, if you're drafting Caleb Downs, you're drafting, a foundation piece. You're drafting a guy who's not only going to be the guy to lead your locker room, but a guy to be really, really involved in your community. outside of football. He's a franchise player who's just, you can trust. You can trust that guy. And I think, as if you can get those guys, you can trust those team captain type of players. I think that's really, really useful. All right, so we have the first quarterback being taken off the board, and we're hearing a lot of things that, Jermon McCoy's torn ACL has teams a bit concerned. So Jermon McCoy is not the first corner being selected in Peter Schrager's mock draft. It is Mansour Delane. So Mansour Delane is going to, in Peter Schrager's mock draft, to the Dallas Cowboys here. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys would have to trade up, and that's what we have them doing. But they trade up to get an established, lockdown corner. Now, he has only really one solid year. He transferred from Oregon State. But in that 1 year, he proved that he's a shutdown man corner. Can he do that at the next level? We'll have to see. But all these guys, you don't know what you're getting out of them until you actually get them on a football field. Like Jason Light says, it really takes 3 years for these guys to develop and you to fully understand, did that player turn out the way I expect them to be? Or are they unfortunately a bust? All right, let's continue Peter Schrager's mock draft here. He has Francis Mauigoa going 11 overall to Miami Dolphins. They need a lot of offensive line help to help out Malik Willis. And the Giants taking Jordan Tyson. So a lot of the buzz with Jordan Tyson going inside the top 10 is the Giants really, really love him. And they love him so much that they're willing to take him with either their 5th overall selection or their 10th overall selection. Now, if they wait to go for the 10th overall selection, you risk a team like the Commanders taking him at number 7 overall, or another team trading into the top 10 above spot number 9 or number 10 to draft Jordan Tyson before the Giants can. So that is a very interesting note here. Do the Giants take Jordan Tyson at number 5, or do they take him at number 10? All right, let's continue here. Number 12 overall, he has the Kansas City Chiefs selecting edge rusher Ruben Bain Jr. Now, Ruben Bain Jr., of course, has the entire legal reckless, driving incident issue. 1 in 2024, another killers driving accident in 2025. Does that affect his draft stock? We're hearing mostly it will not affect his draft stock. He's still going to be a top 10, top 15 player. But the Kansas City Chiefs have selected him in Peter Schrager's mock draft here, and that's with the trade down. So the Dallas Cowboys would have to trade up from number 12 to number 9, and the Kansas City Chiefs trading down to number 12. All right, Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor is this very big offensive lineman from the Alabama Crimson Tide. And a lot of the draft buzz is that the Detroit Lions really, really love Caden Proctor. He's a guy who maybe a few weeks ago, teams you wouldn't see mock drafts with him going in the top 15, and now you do. And we've even heard things that potentially at number 6, the Cleveland Browns could take Caden Proctor, number 6 overall. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. A very big offensive lineman, offensive tackle. Some draft analysts believe he could be most likely a better guard than he's going to be a tackle, but he has a very massive frame. I believe 6'6", 6'7", very girthy frame as well. So really interested to see where does he go, and do teams see him as a tackle or a guard? All right, so at number 14 overall, Peter Schrager has the Baltimore Ravens taking Vega Ioane. So Vega Ioane is the player who I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting in my final mock draft. He goes all the way to number 14 here before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick at number 15. He is off the board. He's a guy who, if he's on the board, number 15, he's a guy who I strongly believe that Jason Light could consider as a best player available type of draft pick. But Peter Schrager has him going number 14 overall, so that would end that idea. All right, number 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a big one. So at number 15, Peter Schrager has, and most mock draft people and draft analysts have, Akeem Messidor from Miami going number 15 overall, or the Buccaneers potentially trading back a little and still drafting Akeem Messidor. So I know Peter Schrager had this. I believe Mel Kiper as well had Akeem Messidor going 15th overall. Connor Rogers, Trevor Sikkema of NFLSC, all those guys as well believe that Akeem Messidor is going to be the Buccaneers selection here. That's kind of the consensus pick, that it's going to be Akeem Messidor tonight. They get their edge rusher. If they were to add Akeem Messidor, he's most likely a day one starter. So last year in training camp, they had Jacob Parrish, 3rd round rookie, start right away at the nickel position. I can see right away, day one in training camp, if Akeem Messidor is that pick, him starting right away opposite of Yaya Diaby. They did sign Al-Quadin Muhammad this offseason. The only problem with Akwedi Muhammad, who had 11 sacks last year coming off of the bench, working opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, is that he's just not a good run defender. He's a guy who actually, I believe, was Rob McCartney or Mike Beal, assistant general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They recently stated that they believe he's best. He works best when he's over guards. So that means maybe like in a nickel package, you have Akwedi Muhammad inside, maybe working next to Vita Vea or Kalijah Kancey, and your two outside edge rushers, in this case, will be Yadi Diaby and Akeem Messidor. So he's a guy sometimes going to see him rush from the inside. So he has that inside-outside versatility. The Buccaneers also have David Walker, who was their 4th-round pick last year out of Central Arkansas. He suffered a torn ACL on day number 3 of the draft. And, who knows what you're going to get out of him. It's going to be a very interesting offseason for him, training camp, preseason. If the Buccaneers don't come out with a edge rusher round 1 and round number 2, it's because the guy that they wanted most likely wasn't there. And also maybe they just have a lot of confidence in David Walker. Anthony Nelson is also in this room, of course, a veteran. He's on a 1-year contract. And then Chris Braswell, he's a guy who, if the Buccaneers draft 1 or 2 edge rushers, he can be potentially knocked off. This is also a former 2nd-round pick out of Alabama we're talking about here. But he says just not produced anything throughout his tenure as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Let's get back to Peter Schrager's mock draft. Now let's just look at players that, he has going in the bottom of the 1st round or just not at all. So one player that comes to mind here that stands out is right there, number 29. You see the Dallas Cowboys in Peter Schrager's mock draft going with edge rusher Malachi Lawrence. So Malachi Lawrence is one of those guys who can potentially be a bottom of the 1st round or early 2nd round type of guy. I do not think he makes it to pick number 46, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be picking in the 2nd round. But he's a guy that if you want Malachi Lawrence, you have to trade back, or you have to trade up in the 2nd round if he has not been selected in night number 1. So Malachi Lawrence, Peter Schrager does have him going in the 1st round. That is interesting to note. Another important note here is who he has going number 30. So Jermon McCoy. Teams are concerned about that knee, and some teams reportedly believe that knee might need further work, and something about a bone plug and, just the cartilage issue. It's just some teams are taking him off of their draft board entirely. So we got Roger Goodell coming up here for the first. He's going to announce that. There we go. All right, we knew that one. Fernando Mendoza going number 1 overall. What a happy moment for this kid. Won the national championship in Indiana. He's a true leader. If I was a general manager, if I'm John Spytek, former assistant general manager of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's a guy that I'm going with myself also. So the pick is in for the Raiders. We've known this one for months and months and months on end, but finally it is here. And the first pick has been taken off of the board. Wow, wow, wow. All right, so you want a true leader. You want a guy to lead your franchise. Fernando Mendoza is going to give you everything that he possibly can. I'm sure Tom Brady, who's the minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, is going to love working with Fernando Mendoza. This is like if Michael Jordan got to work with a young Kobe Bryant. I don't want to put too much on Fernando Mendoza here by hyping him too much, man. But he is a guy who's going to give you everything he has, a true leader. He's a guy who can do it with his arm or with his legs as well. He has that dual threat ability. He's not extremely mobile, but if you need him to get you the first down, you need him to get you a touchdown like he did with his feet in the game against Miami in the national championship game. He can do that. You see here, his pressure rate was 71. He's okay under pressure, the best quarterback under pressure, one of the best quarterbacks under pressure in this draft class. But you see what he can do with the deep ball and the intermediate ball. Man, oh man, Fernando Mendoza goes number 1 overall. He's excited here. And now that means the draft really starts right here at number 2 overall. Who is it going to be for the New York Jets? Is it going to be Arvell Reese, or is it going to be David Bailey? We have to wait and see here. But, man, we have started this draft, and it's going to be a lot of fun here. Let's pull up the Jets here. The Jets are on the clock. It's going to be a really exciting time. Who goes number 2? Is it Arvell Reese out of Ohio State, who's a hybrid guy? Or did it go with a more polished edge rusher at this moment in David Bailey? David Bailey does have some potential character concerns. There was a moment after the Arizona State University game where he was upset after the loss. He grabs the back of the neck of a photographer, and it's just a whole nasty incident where they have to, he has to be separated from the photographer. But I don't think teams are really going to hold that against him. I think teams don't care. They see the talent, they see the potential in him, and I think they're just gonna draft a guy that they know can get to the quarterback. If you guys have not done so already, please make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys do that. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here. Maybe by the end of draft night, maybe or day 2 of the draft, maybe you can get up to 1,000 subscribers. That's going to be fun. Again, who goes number 2 overall? This is a big pivotal moment in the draft because it starts right here, and then number 3, it can really go anywhere because the Cardinals are in a position where they can potentially trade down. And look, the pick is already in. This is a very fast-moving draft. The Jets don't trade out. They stick and pick at number 2 overall. And let's find out who this guy is going to be. We got to wait for Roger Goodell to come out here and make the pick, but this draft is moving fast. It's going to be Arvell Reese, so it's going to be David Bailey. It's between those 2 guys most likely. And again, the New York Jets did cancel their top 30 visit with David Bailey a few days ago. The GM said, don't look into that too much. Sometimes these top 30 visits are just for medical purposes, or they want them to meet with other people inside the building, but not to read too much into the canceled 30 visit for David Bailey. But it's one of these 2 guys most likely here. I think both these guys are not as safe as some draft analysts might proclaim them to be. I think Arvell Reese is a real he's a freakish athlete, but he's kind of a project again. He has not played full-time at the edge rush position. So you're getting a guy who he's going to come in. He's got to learn the position throughout the entire season. But man, here we go. Roger Goodell comes out. Who is it going to be? It is David Bailey out of Texas Tech. David Bailey goes 2nd overall. Wow. So Arvell Reese, where can he go? Does he go now? Does he slide a little bit? Does he go down to number 5 to the New York Giants? Or does a team like the New Orleans Saints who want to move up, do they take a risk and trade up for Arvell Reese at number 3 overall with the Arizona Cardinals, do a little swap there, move up from 8 to number 3 for Arvell Reese? That'll be a little bit of a danger for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're going to get a freakish athlete who has a very high upside. But let's talk about David Bailey right now. You see David Bailey, 15 sacks last year. That Texas Tech defense was stacked. They had Lee Hunter in the middle. They had, Jacob Rodriguez, a Buccaneers fan favorite. They had Romello Height opposite of David Bailey. But a very talented guy, a guy who can do it both against the run and the pass. Better, of course, as a pass rusher than a run stopper. But you see here, 43 hurries, got a ton of pressure working for the Texas Tech defense last year. 23 quarterback hits and 15 sacks. He is the 2nd overall selection here. Now, number 3. Number 3 becomes very interesting. Do the Cardinals stick and pick? And if they do, that could potentially be the running back, Jeremiah Love. Or are they going to trade back here? David Bailey, they go with the more polished edge rusher at this moment. David Bailey off the edge has that first step explosiveness, that bend, that get off, man. He's a guy who's going to cause problems for teams in that AFC East. All right, so Kalier says, to be fair, Reese is a hybrid player, and those type of guys rarely pan out. Yeah, that's kind of the concern I'm sure that the Jets had. You think about a guy like Isaiah Simmons, who was drafted to the Arizona Cardinals, just did not pan out. These tweeners, are they edge rushers? Are they linebackers? You see a guy who did work out, though, last year with Jalen Walker out of Georgia. He did work out, but now all these guys work out. He's a guy who's going to have to learn the position. So now I'm interested to see, does he drop? Does he drop a little bit? Or does the team get aggressive like the Saints and move up to number 3 overall? The pick is not in yet for the Cardinals, but this draft is moving along. All right. So Flash Gordon says, I would have gone with Jeremiah Love over Bailey. So, man, I think they just want a guy who can get to the quarterback. They traded away Jeremiah Johnson, and they need another edge rusher working opposite of Will McDonald. So they trade away Jeremiah Johnson or Jermaine Johnson. He goes to Robert Saleh's Tennessee Titans. And they just need an edge rusher opposite of Will McDonald. And they think they found that guy with David Bailey. What a pick here. What a night so far. I'm interested to see these drafts get started. And again, the clock is still going. Maybe Arizona Cardinals are working the phones with other teams to potentially trade down. They got about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left to make their decision. Who do you guys think the Cardinals are taking number 3 overall? This is a spot, Flash Gordon, that the Cardinals can potentially take Jeremiah Love, go with a running back here. He's a generational type of talent. He's a guy who, if you are going to take a running back this early, he's the type of running back that you want to take. He's a guy who can do it all, a true workhorse, 3-down back, 4-down back if you need to go on 4th down, try to convert, move the chains. This is a potential landing spot for Jeremiah Love. But you see the offseason here for the New York Jets. They trade for Geno Smith. So they trade away Justin Fields. Justin Fields goes off to the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes recovering from his torn ACL. And they bring in Geno Smith. Geno Smith comes over from the Las Vegas Raiders. He is a guy who, Aaron Glenn believes he could take them to the promised land. I don't believe that he can bring them to the Super Bowl, but he got high praise from Aaron Glenn. He believes that he could be a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. I don't see that, but they believe in him. They've showed that belief. They also signed linebacker Demario Davis. So he returns to the New York Jets, just like Geno Smith makes that return back home, in quotations, to the New York Jets or the New Jersey Jets, right? But they signed Demario Davis in free agency. Of course, they traded away Jermaine Johnson, and now they draft edge rusher David Bailey. So the Cardinals have sticked and picked. They did not move. They're going to stick and pick, and let's see who they go with. All right, Flash Gordon's predicting here that they, I certainly think they should draft him. They think Flash Gordon believes that the Cardinals should take Jeremiah Love. They're showing him right now in the green room, not standing, not showing much of a smile. So I'm wondering, is it not him? We'll see here. Do they take Arvell Reese and go for another hybrid type of guy like they took Isaiah Simmons a few years ago, and that did not pan out like Kalier talked about? So Flash Gordon here says, I'm a little bit more of a Cardinals fan than the Jets, so I should be happy if they draft Love. Let's see, is this the pick here? The pick is going to come in. Is it Jeremiah Love? Is a running back going to be selected 3rd overall? All right. Nobody traded. The Saints didn't trade. The Cowboys didn't get aggressive. Nobody got aggressive. Let's see who pick number 3 is. They do go with the running back. They go with Jeremiah Love, a running back being taken 3rd overall. We talked about at the beginning of the show. You can throw away positional value. Positions don't matter in this draft. This is a very weird draft. How often do you see a running back in today's day, be taken 3rd overall. Flash Gordon, you called it here. You wanted him to be taken here, and there he is. Jeremiah Love in a deep backfield with the Arizona Cardinals now. You still have James Conner in that running back room. They just signed Tyler Algier from the Atlanta Falcons. But now you add your true RB1, Matt LaFleur. I'm sure he's extremely excited talking about the Arizona Cardinals. They've had quite an offseason themselves. Bring in new head coach. Mike LaFleur comes over from the LA Rams goes from the offense coordinator position to be their head coach. They move on from running back Kyler Murray. So who's going to be the QB1 for the Arizona Cardinals? Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett, who wants a pay raise? Is it going to be Gardner Minshew, who they signed this offseason to a 1-year deal, about $5.75 million? Or do they draft a guy like Ty Simpson in this draft? Do they move back into the back end of the first round, draft Ty Simpson? Moving up a few spots can cost you maybe like a 4th round pick. Do they accept that cost to get their guy and get the 5th-year option on a quarterback? Or just let the board fall to them and see who's available? I believe they pick number 34 overall in the 2nd round. Yep, 34th overall. That's the 2nd selection in the 2nd round. But they take the running back at number 3 overall. Again, throw positional value out of the room. Now, I'm a guy who I love running backs also. So it's just the NFL doesn't take running backs early anymore. But I'm a running back guy still. I love these skill positions. Running backs do have value. It feels like once they turn off 30, once they turn 30 years old, they throw these guys off a cliff and they're not valuable anymore. But man, Jeremiah Love goes number 3 overall. They need to add to that offensive line. He needs a offensive line to block for him, protect, the quarterback, whoever the quarterback is going to be, but to create running lanes. You can do everything you need him to do. So this is a very solid and stacked running back room that the Arizona Cardinals have. Maybe Matt LaFleur, he's like, all right, we don't have a lot of talent. They do have Trey McBride. They do have Harrison Jr. But outside of that, not much talent in that wide receiver room. But they do have talent in the running back room. So this might be a run-first type of team in 2026. All right, so let's get to a few of these comments here. Flash Gordon says, none of those guys can compare to, Jeremiah Love. He is undoubtedly, you see that one-handed catch he had there. None of these guys can compare to him, of course. He is their new RB1. And they have Trey McBride, but outside of that, Harrison Jr. hasn't been that elite wide receiver they thought they were going to get, from him out of Ohio State. Now they have their new face of the franchise in Jeremiah Love. This is a guy who can sell tickets, sell jerseys. People are going to want to be in the stadium, no matter how the team is doing, to watch Jeremiah Love. One of those generational elite type of running backs here. Good to see a running back. Good to see a running back go this early in the draft. And the pick is in for number 4. So the Tennessee Titans did not trade also. So for the Tennessee Titans, is this Arvell Reese or is this Sonny Styles? I think those 2 guys are in consideration here. They could go with an offensive lineman, but I think they're going to go defense here. I think they're going to go with one of those 2 guys. Flash Gordon here says Gardner Minshew. I like Jacoby Brissett too, but that's going to be a competition throughout training camp of the preseason. Both those guys can give you something, they can produce. But I like Jacoby Brissett a little bit more. I think he could sling it, but he needs an offensive line in front of him. But he wants a pay raise. So I don't know if he's even going to be showing up to the team's training camp or offseason program. And let's see what Flash Gordon says. He says Cards first hit in a while. Yeah, this is a jersey, seller. This is a ticket seller, this guy here. This is going to be, I like Jacoby Brissett as a backup. I was actually looking into early in the offseason his salary and, what potentially a realistic trade could look like if the Buccaneers were to bring him in as their QB2. Now, as a QB1, you have Baker Mayfield as your QB1, but Jacoby Brissett as your QB2. And, he's going to want a quarterback 1 type of salary, or just a bigger salary than a backup quarterback. That's what he's fighting for right now. All right, so the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. They stuck and picked. They did not trade down. And the pick is in here. Again, this could be Sonny Styles, a linebacker out of Ohio State, or the other linebacker / edge rusher out of Ohio State. This could be Arvell Reese, freakish athlete. Both those guys ran 4.46 at the combine. Let's see where they go here. Gotta wait for Roger Goodell to come out. Remember, Gerald McCoy started the whole hug process with Roger Goodell. He came out, just gave him a big bear hug, lift him in the air. After that, the hug becomes a tradition in the draft. Again, we're doing a no spoiler type of draft show here. So I forgot to mention that, but no spoilers. If you want to look up the picks on your own, like on social media, they go up before. Of course, we see them live on TV, but I'm trying to stay off. I want to be surprised because that's what makes the draft exciting for me. Whoa, okay. That's a surprise there. The Tennessee Titans don't go Arvell Reese. They don't go Sonny Styles. They go with another Ohio State Buckeye, and it's the first wide receiver taken off the board, and it's Cardinal Tate. Whoa, this is a shocker here. Okay, we heard a lot of buzz that Jordan Tyson could have been that first wide receiver taken off the board, and it's not Jordan Tyson. It's Cardinal Tate. What a surprise of a pick. This is why I don't want to be on social media right now. I want to be watching live and seeing these things and being surprised live. Because I did not expect that one. I did not see Cardinal Tate throughout the entire offseason being mocked to the Tennessee Titans. Wow, what a shocker here. So we look at the Tennessee Titans offseason up to this point. And again, they move on from their head coach early in the season, Brian Callahan, who the Buccaneers brought in this offseason to interview for the offense coordinator position. Ultimately, they go with Zach Robinson from the Atlanta Falcons. But they bring in Robert Saleh, who's going to get another opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League. They have Cam Ward, of course, who was the first overall selection last year out of Miami. And they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy who Brian Daboll, the new offensive coordinator for the New York Giants, has worked with before. They signed him to a 4-year, $70 million deal. They traded for Jermaine Johnson. So they already acquired an edge rusher this offseason. So maybe that's why they didn't go edge right now with Arvell Reese. But they got more firepower for Cam Ward. Now they need to improve the offensive line, get more protection for him. But they get another weapon for him. And this guy in Cardinal Tate, he ran the 4.5, so he doesn't have that speed. He's not a burner. But he's a guy who can push the ball down the field. You see 6'2", 192 where his combine measurements. He had 9 touchdowns last year. He wasn't the top wide receiver at Ohio State, but he's a very solid wide receiver. He was working as a wide receiver 2 behind Jeremiah Smith, who's going to come out in the draft next year. You can see another potential top 5 Ohio State wide receiver next year in the draft. But you see that 85.7 contested catch rating. That is difficult to do. A guy like Mike Evans, I don't think throughout his whole career he had an 85.7 contested catch rating. He's just a guy that you throw it up to him and he's going to come down with that football. He's not my wide receiver 1. I had Jordan Tyson as my wide receiver 1. But again, the injury concerns with Jordan Tyson, the Tennessee Titans decide not to go with the injury risk player in Jordan Tyson. They go with Cardinal Tate, the safer pick. But they get another weapon for Cam Ward. Back-to-back offensive players being drafted here. You got the running back, Jeremiah Love, going number 3 to the Cardinals, and the number 4, Cardinal Tate from Ohio State. The Ohio State wide receivers, we know they can turn into something in the NFL. You know, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who won the Super Bowl this season with the Seattle Seahawks. We know Emeka Buka got drafted in the first round last year. So let's see here. All right, Flash Gordon says Minshew is also a quality backup, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Both those guys, Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew, quality backup quarterbacks. The picks are happening kind of fast all of a sudden. Bucs pick at number 15 or trade down. Yes, this is a very fast draft so far. They did minimize the time. So it used to be 10 minutes per pick. They shortened it down to 8 minutes per pick, but teams aren't even taking that full 8 minutes. It seems like they're taking maybe 4 or 5 minutes, sending that pick in to the front office, to the league office, and they're just selecting their guys. It's a fast-paced draft. The NFL wanted the draft to be faster this year, and these teams got the memo. So the Giants, they have their first of their 2 top 10 picks, and they're not trading out. The pick is in, And let's see who the Giants going to go with in a few moments. If we want to see, how the Giants offseason went this offseason, we can recap it. They bring in John Harbaugh. Let me pull it up here. They bring in John Harbaugh, who is a longtime Ravens head coach, to be their head coach. And he has, reportedly, he has final say on these draft picks, and he has final say over roster building. So that's a really important thing. It's not their GM, Joe Shane. It's the head coach. They brought in a Ravens guy, a tight end, Isaiah Likely, who was working behind, of course, Mark Andrews for many years. Now he could potentially be their tight end one. He signed a 3-year, $40 million deal. They try to shore up the inside linebacker room by signing Tremaine Edwards from the Chicago Bears. Feels like he's been the NFL for a long time. Was with the Buffalo Bills before also, so I believe this is his third team. But he signs a 3-year, $36 million deal. They sign a wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, who was previously with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Darnell Mooney did not do much during his tenure as a Falcon. He was hurt with a shoulder injury in 2024. He didn't get many targets, didn't get much production also. He didn't do much in 2025. But the Giants take a low risk on him. They lose Wan'Dale Robinson, but they bring in Darnell Mooney. Cheap deal, 1 year, $3 million. And the biggest thing that happened this offseason for them is trading away Dexter Lawrence II. Now, he did have a down year, of course, but they trade him away. He's 29 years old, of course, close to 30 years old. I believe he had like half a sack in 2025. He's a dominant run stuffer, of course. But they trade him away, and in return, they get the 10th overall selection. So the Bengals believe that Dexter Lawrence is going to be a better pick than any of the guys they're going to get at number 10. And the Giants believe now this is another way to build their team, to build this already young and talented team, to continue to build this team, to potentially trade down, acquire more draft picks, just continue to add to this roster, make this a Super Bowl contender or at least a team that can do some damage in the playoffs. So we have a commercial break here, but when they come back, the Giants will be on the clock. To recap, we had, of course, Fernando Mendoza go number 1 overall. At number 2, the Jets took David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Number 3, Jeremiah Love, running back, being taken very early in this draft, number 3 overall. And then lastly, number 4, Carnell Tate, that down-the-field pusher, goes to the Tennessee Titans at number 4. That's the first surprise pick of this year's draft. I don't think anybody really expected the Tennessee Titans to go with Carnell Tate. I've seen if they did go for offensive player, offensive lineman, or most of the times, Jeremiah Love was being mocked to the Tennessee Titans if they were taking an offensive player. But Robert Zoller at the annual owners meeting was talking about edge rushers. Those are the guys who, they're the most important position. They're the ones who are going to give you the most production. They're the most important to the team. He was talking about edge as their top, priority, it seemed like. But they don't go with edge. They don't go with Arvell Reese. They don't go with Ruben Bain Jr. They take the wide receiver to help out Cam Ward just a little bit more. All right, so we're going to have Roger Goodell come out to announce the pick for the New York Giants. Let's see what this is going to be. Kay Leard and Eric Jagger both believe this could be Sonny Styles. I believe this is a Sonny Styles also selection here, but let's see. All right, here we go. Be Sonny Styles or Jordan Tyson. Oh, not Sonny Styles, not Jordan Tyson. They go with Arvell Reese at number 5 overall. So they have a hybrid guy now. This is a guy who depending on where you feel most comfortable with, you put him at inside linebacker, or you have him on the edge, hunting down the quarterback. He is a freakish athlete. Man, oh man, ran a 4.46 at the combine. I'm just surprised because I saw Sonny Styles as more of that Giants type of player, but they decided not to go Sonny Styles because Sonny Styles is a leader. You know we're going to get out of him. We're getting like a Fred Warner type of player. But man, does Sonny Styles slip a little bit? I think the floor might be the Washington Commanders. I believe they pick at number 8. Number 7. Sonny Styles might go number 7. We'll see. But this is a surprise. Back-to-back surprise picks. You had Carnell Tate go number 4. And here number 5, Arvell Reese. Wonder where the Giants feel most comfortable with him, because if he's going to be an edge rusher, if you see him as an edge rusher, I wouldn't put him back and forth between linebacker and edge rusher. Have him full-time as an edge rusher. Get him as many reps as you could possibly get at that position. But think about this team already. They're full of edge rushers. They have Abdul Carter, of course, and Brian Burns. Brian Burns had 15 plus sacks in 2025, and they just add another edge rusher. You always hear this saying that you can never have enough good edge rushers, and that truly is what the Giants believe here. Wow. I honestly, if I was a GM of the Giants, I would have gone Sonny Styles here, but they don't go Sonny Styles. So now let's see number 10 for the Giants, because they pick again. They really like Jordan Tyson. So Jordan Tyson could go number 10, but the Chiefs at number 6. All right, we have a trade. We have a first trade here. The Chiefs trade up from number 9 to number 6. So the Browns, we've been hearing the Browns. Reportedly, they want to take an offensive tackle and a wide receiver. They trade down here, and the Chiefs trade up. Do the Chiefs take Sonny Styles or Ruben Bain Jr.? Ruben Bain Jr. is the last of that top echelon type of edge rusher. This could be Ruben Bain Jr. for the Chiefs. It could be Jordan Tyson. I think a wild card, extreme wild card, could potentially be a guy like Makai, wide receiver? Makai Lemon, the slot wide receiver from USC. That's an extreme wild card. This one's Chiefs, Ruben Bain Jr. or Jordan Tyson. This is going to be an interesting pick. We get our first trade of this draft. All right, so K-Leard says, if Styles falls to 10, Light should be fired if he doesn't trade up. Now, listen, Sonny Styles, you're getting an elite generational type of off-ball linebacker with him. And I did a kind of this trade scenario type of thing in one of my episodes a few weeks ago. And one of the trade-up options, I had the Buccaneers going from number 15 to number 9. And if you get to number 10, as he stated, number 10 would be right now the New York Giants. The cost that I projected, I was using the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart and also the Pro Football Reference chart. So I'm trying to see the most realistic trade option here for the Buccaneers. But they would have to give up their third round pick 77, of course, pick number 15, because you're going to swap picks, and their fourth round picks. So you're going to give up your third and your fourth to go up 6 picks. Now, this is 5 picks because you're trading for number 15 and 10 instead of 15 and 9. But it's going to be somewhere around that range. But if you truly believe in Sonny Styles, I believe in Sonny Styles. He's your next. You had, of course, Derek Brooks, Levante David, and he will be your next Tampa Bay great linebacker. But again, we're here right now with let's see what the reports here. Okay, so the Browns received the 9th pick, the Chiefs' 3rd round pick, and 5th round pick. So you do a trade swap, of course. The Chiefs move up from 9 to 6, but they have to give up their 3rd round pick and their 5th round pick. Let's see who this is going to be, but let's see. Flash Gordon says, would have gone with Styles. Imagine if Sonny Styles falls out of the top 10. Jason Light Jason Light doesn't normally trade up, aggressively, but moving up a few picks, potentially giving up a 4th round pick, something like that. That would make sense for a guy like Sonny Styles if you truly believe in him. Chiefs got to go with Styles. Let's see here. Who is he picking to be? Chiefs are on the clock and their pick is in. Whoa, another back surprise picks here. They don't go Sonny Styles. They don't go Reuben Bain Jr. The Chiefs go with Mansour Delane out of LSU, cornerback. So he's one of the top 2 corners in this year's draft class. You have him. You have Jermon McCoy out of Tennessee. You also have Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. I like him. He's my cornerback 3. He's better as a zone corner than a press man corner. But they go with a cornerback. Now, they did trade away Trent McDuffie this offseason to the LA Rams. But this is a pick that I did not see come these last few picks. This is why I stay off of social media. I try to on draft night because you just don't know what's going to happen. And guys are spoiling, of course, the draft throughout the entire night on X. But I think the part of the excitement is just seeing who goes where. And I did not expect these last few picks. Cardinal Tate, number 4. Number 5, Arvell Reese. And number 6, Mansour Delane. Okay, so I did have Jermon McCoy as my CB1. I truly believe that when you look at the 2024 tape from Jermon McCoy, and you look at the 2025 tape for Mansour Delane, I did like Jermon McCoy's tape better. I believe he kind of reminds me of, a shutdown corner like a Darrelle Revis. He's not Darrelle Revis, but just a guy who you put him one-on-one against the best wide receiver on the opposing offense, and he's going to be a guy who can shut down that player, minimize his impact as much as he can. Now, Mansour Delane can do that too, but I just believe more in Jermon McCoy. But the problem with Jermon McCoy is that knee injury, and we're seeing reports that Jermon McCoy could potentially fall out of the first round. Some teams have taken him completely off of their draft board because there is a concern with that knee and a bone plug issue. It's a little bit tricky with that knee. That knee looks a bit complex, but the Chiefs go the safe route. And they go with the safer cornerback with Mansour Delane. Okay, this draft is very interesting. We heard, leading up the last 2 days that this is going to be a very interesting draft, and it truly is. We know that Patrick Mahomes is currently injured due to that torn ACL they suffered last season, 2025. They brought over Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to be working with Andy Reid. Justin Fields is a guy that I'm not high on Justin Fields. I think he's had too many opportunities. The Bears, the Steelers, the Jets, none of them end up working out. But you're with Andy Reid now. This is probably the best position he's ever been in. Work with Andy Reid. You also have, of course, Patrick Mahomes in that quarterback room. I'm sure he's going to be in his ear. He wants the Chiefs to win because when he comes back, he wants the Chiefs to be in a playoff position, fighting for a playoff spot. But they brought in Justin Fields to fill that void until Patrick Mahomes can come back. That trade for Trent McDuffie. So they send away Trent McDuffie to the LA Rams. They picked up an extra first-round pick in the process. He signs a big extension with the LA Rams. And then now they fill that quarter need with Mansour Delane. They move on from Jawan Taylor. He got released. He is now with the Atlanta Falcons. They signed Kenneth Walker II out of the Seattle Seahawks. He comes over on a 3-year, $43 million deal. And then they bring over the extra safety from the Chiefs. So they had a cornerback need. They fill that cornerback need at number 6. They trade up. I wonder why they traded up. Did they hear potentially that the Commanders, or maybe it was to get ahead of the Saints, because the Saints pick at number 8 overall, and they do have a cornerback need. The Saints did move on from Alontae Taylor. He went to the Tennessee Titans. So was it to get ahead of the New Orleans Saints potentially? But no matter what, they take their guy at number 6. It costs a 3rd-round pick. It costs a 5th-round pick. But they take Mansour Delane. And the Washington Commanders stick and pick at number 7. And do the Commanders go with a wide receiver here? Or, again, I talked about earlier, the floor for Sonny Styles potentially being number 7. If he doesn't go here, man, then that a trade-up by Jason Light becomes possibly a little bit more realistic. We'll see here. Who are the Commanders going to take at number 7 in a row? They brought back their Super Bowl era uniforms this offseason. They look beautiful. But let's hear Roger Goodell here. K. Leard says, I think Washington might take Styles. They have no linebackers. Yeah, I think this is his floor here. But if he doesn't go number 7, that's a head scratcher there, because he is a tremendous off-ball linebacker. Yep, Chiefs play a lot of press man, and he's a press man. When we talk about Mansour Delane, a press man, shut down corner. Contemplated man of the year. There we go. That was the floor for Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles goes number 7 overall. And the the Washington Commanders had their linebacker of the future. They had, of course, Bobby Wagner. Now they add Sonny Styles. Man, you think about Jaden Daniels still in that rookie contract. You bring in your new leader, your new quarterback of the defense, and Sonny Styles. Man, he's in my opinion, he's probably the most talented player, or one of the top 2 or 3. When you think about Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love, those are your top 2, best prospects in this year's draft class. You could also say Kenyon Sadiq, but I wouldn't have him as high as those 2 guys. But Sonny Styles, he's your new quarterback of the defense. Very instinctive. He is a leader. He wore the O block. That's number 0 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's given to him by the coaching staff because they believe he is a leader on and off the field. He's a hard worker, very instinctive. And look at that 6'5" frame. He's 6'5", 244 pounds. It's actually wild, but he was a safety. He came into Ohio State as a safety prospect at that size, 6'5". Now, he didn't have the weight, the linebacker weight, but he did have like 6'5". But he transitioned to inside linebacker once Caleb Downs became a Buckeye. But man, imagine a 6'5" safety, Sonny Styles back there. But he does have that coverage skills. He has that experience in coverage, working as a safety. All right, the Saints also, we heard the Saints potentially being a team that wanted to trade up. They're at number 8. They're going to stick and pick. Let's see who the Saints are going to go here with a moment. Let's get to our comments, though. You got Sonny Styles coming out to the podium. Go greet Roger Goodell. What a big moment for these guys. These guys worked for many years throughout their childhood. Pee-wee football, middle school football, high school football, college football, to get to this big moment, to make it to the NFL. Now, NIL money has kind of, made that jump, to the NFL a little bit different because these guys are already getting paid millions of dollars in college. But no matter what, this is their future career now. They have just, on Indeed, they can put that they're on, they're not employed anymore. They are employed, and Sonny Styles is employed by the Washington Commanders now. All right. Let's read Flash Gordon's comment here. Flash Gordon says, at this rate, Vega Wane will be there for the Bucs. Do we want him? Maybe trade down and go with Emmanuel Pregnon, who is the guard out of Oregon. I could draft Pregnon with a lower first-round pick. Yes, so, and Kayleard upset here, very frustrated that Sonny Styles is off the board. What a dream that has ended. So, throughout the entire, offseason, I've been asked before, are the football gods going to bless the Buccaneers with Sonny Styles? And unfortunately, after that combine performance where he just showed out, he was a top combine prospect. All these measurements, the vertical jump, the broad jump, the 40 time, the interviews, he crushed all his interviews also with teams. He's just a perfect prospect, an off-ball linebacker, goes number 7 overall. Unfortunately, not going to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but there are still some linebacker options for the Buccaneers in this draft. You have Jacob Rodriguez, who, of course, is not off the board yet. So Jacob Rodriguez, talking about him real quick before we continue for comments. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN says, several NFL scouts believe that linebacker Jacob Rodriguez will be the second off-ball linebacker drafted. Panthers, Bills, among teams that did extensive homework on Rodriguez. So if we look at the Panthers pick the first round at number 19 overall. That is 4 picks below the Buccaneers. So if the Buccaneers want to trade back, and if their intent is to draft Jacob Rodriguez, you probably can't move past the Panthers. And then for the Bills, they pick number 26 overall, and they have linebacker needs also. So those are 2 teams to watch for Jacob Rodriguez, unless another team trades up to pick one of these guys. But let's go back to Flash Gordon's comment here. So Vega Wane, I had him again going with the Buccaneers, going with Vega Wane in my mock draft, my final mock draft, because if he's on the board, I think it's hard. If Jason Light truly wants to go BPA, best player available, I think it's hard for him to pass up Vega Wane. Guard is not an emergency need. So I remember when I took that, when I made that selection with Vega Wane, a lot of criticism. But this thing about Jason Light last year, taking a Mekabukum and had all these defensive holes. He sometimes, if there's not a player like an edge rusher in this case that he really likes or something, he's going to go BPA. He's going to draft the best player available. And eventually, as he states, you're going to need that guy. So if the Buccaneers go Vega Wane, I think you're not going to wait. You're going to put him in at your maybe your left guard position. He's going to be a day one starter, but then that makes Ben Bredeson your interior offensive line depth. And Ben Bredeson is a guy who can also play center. So Ben Bredeson moves around. He could be a guy who could play left guard, center, or right guard, depending on what occurs and what injuries occur throughout your season. But Emmanuel Pregnon, talking about Emmanuel Pregnon, he's a guy who, if the Buccaneers are intent on going offensive line, I like him too. He's very big. He has like a low body fat percentage. I watched him when I was watching Noah Whittington. I like Noah Whittington. He is the running back from Oregon, undersized, but he blocks his tail off. He blocks and blocks and blocks, puts in so much effort as a blocker. I like Noah Whittington as a guy who the Buccaneers could potentially draft in round number 7 if they want to add another running back to this room. But they already have so many running backs, but you can never have enough good players, right? And Noah Whittington, if they don't like anybody else in round number 7 who's on the board, take a shot on a guy like Noah Whittington. All right, so when they're on commercial break right now, but when they return, the New Orleans Saints are going to be on the board. Let's pull up the Saints here on the clock. All right, so the New Orleans Saints are on the clock here. We'll pull up their offseason recap as well so you can see kind of what has transpired throughout their offseason. All right, so for the New Orleans Saints, of course, NFC South rival of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, these games always get, real like feisty, real aggressive, real dirty at times. They bring in Travis Etienne. So he corrected everybody when he was at his introductory press conference. We've been calling him Travis Etienne for many years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He corrected everybody. He says it's Travis Etienne. So like Devon Etienne, the running back from Miami Dolphins, it's Etienne, not Etienne. So looks like Etienne, but it's not Etienne. Etienne. All right, but they bring in a offensive guard to help Tyler Shuck out. Tyler Shuck proved that he is a starting caliber, quarterback of the future for the New Orleans Saints. He's an older prospect. He was last year. They took a risk on him. He did really good for them. We have possibly Roger Goodell coming up to the board here for the Saints at number 8. So when we look at the New Orleans Saints, Mansour Delane would have been a nice option for them here. He's off the board. They could go corner with Jermon McCoy, but there's question marks on whether he would actually be able to play this year. They can go wide receiver Jordan Tyson a few picks before the Giants are going to pick, who they like Jordan Tyson a lot. The Cleveland Browns also want to take a wide receiver in this year's draft class. Let's see who this pick is going to be. The pick is in. Who is it going to be? Yes, they do go with the wide receiver. They do go with Jordan Tyson. So they picked before, of course, the Cleveland Browns, who traded backwards, and the New York Giants. Both of those teams wanting to take a wide receiver in the first round, reportedly. They pick right before them, and they take the wide receiver. They take the final top 2 of those wide receivers when we talk about Carnell Tate and we talk about Jordan Tyson. They take Jordan Tyson. Again, the main question mark, Jordan Tyson, you turn on his film, they call him the human joystick. The way he moves, the way he bounces around. He had a private workout last week, and he just showed out, and his movement skills were amazing. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of Antonio Brown, if you remember Antonio Brown with the Buccaneers. Saints, Steelers legend, of course, played a little bit with the Raiders. That was horrible with Mike Mayock as the GM, and John Gruden was the head coach there. That was a mess. The New England Patriots, but of course, won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, quit on the team the following season after 2022 or 2020. But Jordan Tyson, his movement skills are amazing. He was able to move, contour his body again. But the main issue, he looks like an elite superstar wide receiver to me. main issue, of course, is the injury history. And the injury history every single year, having some sort of major injury, torn ACL, hamstring injury last year, broken collarbone before. Just can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, that's a, I didn't even think about this, but now he's coming to the NFC South. So the Buccaneers are really weak at the cornerback position. They have, of course, Zion McCollum as their cornerback one. He had a, look at him, Jordan Tyson down on his knees here. Very emotional moment for these guys. This is their dream finally coming true, the big moment in their life. These guys work so hard, and Jordan Tyson, guys, face a lot of adversity with those injuries throughout the years. Gets that label being, of course, injury prone. But here, the Saints take a shot at him. He goes top 10. But now the Buccaneers have to cover him. That's a big task for Zion McCollum. That's a big task for Benjamin Morrison, or Jacob Parrish is going to be outside. Again, out of their top 3 corners for the Buccaneers, I like Jacob Parrish the most out of those guys. Benjamin Morrison was hurt in and out throughout training camp, and the preseason, and the regular season last year. And Zion McCollum had a horrible down year after signing an extension. But these guys are now tasked with the big task of covering Chris Olave for the Saints, and also Jordan Tyson with a quarterback who can sling it, with Tyler Shuck, who we saw last year in that rainy game against the New Orleans Saints at home, where the Buccaneers lost. The Saints are an interesting team. They add Noah Fant at the tight end position. They bring in Travis Etienne at the running back position. So the skill positions for Tyler Shuck have continued to improve. They can add a little bit to that offensive line, just a little bit further help for Tyler Shuck. But the offense is stacked now for the New Orleans Saints. All right, Cleveland Browns. Again, this is a very fast draft. The Cleveland Browns have put in their pick. Let's see who they're going to go with here after Jordan Tyson is done speaking. They wanted to take a wide receiver, but Jordan Tyson and Cardinal Tate are off the board. A lot of teams believe Casey Concepcion is that third wide receiver. Some teams believe Mekhi Lemon is that third wide receiver. Do you take that? Or do you go with an offensive lineman? We haven't seen Francis Mauigoa go off the board yet. Caleb Proctor go off, or Caden Proctor go off the board yet, the big offensive tackle out of Alabama. If you have not done so already while we're waiting, make sure you guys subscribe. I'm going to send out another post here, just another reminder to Bucs fans that we have our draft show going on here. So as we wait for the next pick, just check if you are subscribed. If you're not subscribed, if you can, just please do so. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers soon here. We passed 500 subscribers, and that's an amazing feat. And we just want to keep building and building through the Bay to grow this into a household name in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers media market. Jordan Tyson, of course, happy, elated, signs that rookie card. So again, the top 2 wide receivers off the board here for the Cleveland Browns, but they can go offensive line here. They can go Francis Mauigoa. They can go Caden Proctor at Alabama. They can go interior offensive line if they wanted to, but they really tried to shore up the inside of that offensive line this offseason. They need a tackle. That's what they need mostly. But they could go for a surprise pick, of course. But I see this being wide receiver or offensive tackle here. All right, let's see the commissioner. He's coming out to say the pick here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, they go Spencer Fano. They don't go Francis Mauigoa or Caden Proctor. They go Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano is a very versatile offensive lineman. He's a guy who truly can play all 5 offensive line positions. So he's not a guy who you have to just put him in at, left guard or right tackle. He's a guy who can play at any single position. And at the combine, he took some snaps as a center as well. So wherever you want to put him on that offensive line, Spencer Fano can do it. He might have to take a little bit of time, of course, to adjust. But they're most likely going to put him at tackle and just shore up that offensive line. Now, who is going to be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Is it Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Deshaun Watson. That's a question mark. Who's going to be at quarterback for them playing, or do they draft a quarterback like a Ty Simpson later on this draft, or a Carson Beck? We'll see. But they go Spencer Fano, improve that offensive line, possibly putting him in at right tackle. But no matter who's at quarterback, you got to make sure you can protect them, and that's what they're trying to do here. Spencer Fano, versatile offensive lineman out of Utah, 6'5", 311 pounds. You see him if you're watching the ESPN draft show here. You see him dancing around. And again, this is a very fast draft. We just had the Spencer Fano pick. The Giants already have their pick locked in. The pick is in. They went with Arvell Reese at number 5. Roger Goodell already back out here. Let's see who the Giants go with. All right, so Spencer Fano was the first offensive lineman taken off the board. But we get tackles being taken back-to-back here, and Francis Mauigoa, a guy who I believe has like 8 or 9 or 10 siblings. Big family. He spent some time at the IMG Academy, also in Florida during high school. Played his collegiate career, of course, at Miami. But Jackson Dart got injured quite a bit. A lot of those injuries, of course, came from his scrambling. But if you can protect him, you can make sure that nobody's hitting your quarterback. That's the best thing you can do. And Francis Mauigoa, a big guy, 6'5", 329 pounds. You can see he did allow 2 sacks, but only 4 QB hits, 9 hurries, so allowed some pressures. Not a perfect, clean tackle, but this is not necessarily a elite tackle class or a very strong tackle class, but they take the second tackle here, maybe their first tackle off on the board. Yep. So Mel Kiper's talking about this right here. So he's a guy who, again, he's seen as a tackle, a right tackle, but a guy who can move into guard if he struggles, if the team needs to move him in, if they don't think right tackle is the best position for him in the future, you kick him into guard, and he's probably going to have a solid long career at the guard position. So we have now the Dallas Cowboys on the board, number 11, and that's a surprise because that means they traded up. So we have a trade here. Let's see. What did they have to give up? And who are they trying to select? So the Dallas Cowboys already have their pick in. The Dallas Cowboys had 2 first-round picks coming into this night. They had number 12 overall, and they had number 20 overall. So they moved from number 12 to 11. Is that correct here? Why are you moving up 1 pick? Okay, let's see. This is going to be an interesting one. The Dallas Cowboys move up 1 pick. Who is this one going to be for? So we heard that the Dallas Cowboys and George Pickens, that he's going to sign his franchise tag. So they're going to keep their wide receiver. They're one of their top wide receivers. So I don't think this is going to be a wide receiver. That could be surprised. We still have Caleb Downs on the board. Ruben Bain Jr. still on the board. Maybe they like Jacob Rodriguez, but I think this is a little bit too rich, a little bit too high for him. But this is going to be a very interesting pick. Who do the Dallas Cowboys want? They trade up 1 pick to get this player. Who is that 1 player going to be? Let's see here. Francis Mauigoa, this is always something you want to hear from an offensive lineman that you have. If you're a quarterback, he's willing to die for Jackson Dart. That's the perfect opening statement. I'm sure all Giants fans want to hear. Jackson Dart wants to hear. He's willing to die for his quarterback. A little bit extreme, but he's going to do whatever it takes to protect his quarterback. I remember Drew Brees was on a podcast recently. He was talking about his time with Carl Nicks. Carl Nicks being a former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive lineman. And it was training camp, and the guards were hurt. The other guards, his backup. So he was taking off first team and second team reps, and he was gassed. He was exhausted, and he starts, bending over because he's just out of breath. He needs to catch his breath, and his offensive line coach comes running in. He just sees him, and he starts screaming at him. He grabs him by his shoulder pads, and he starts screaming at him. And Drew Brees grabs the offensive line coach, and he throws him out of the huddle because Drew Brees said when he's in his huddle, he's very particular. He's the only guy he could be talking. The spotlight needs to be on him, essentially. He's the quarterback. You listen to him. Nobody else interfere with this moment. And then the offensive lineman comes in, and he's trying to get Carl Nicks up because he's exhausted. And he grabs the offensive lineman coach. He throws him out. And once that happens, Carl Nicks stands up. He's no longer bent over and exhausted. He says, you basically, you backed me up. I'm going to back you up. Nobody's ever going to touch you. And that just reminded me of Francis Mauigoa there, saying that he's going to die. He would die for Jackson Dart. Let me send out this tweet here. All right, guys, how do you feel about this draft so far? So for Vega Wane still being on the board. That is a guy who the Buccaneers could target at number 15 overall. Akeem Messidor, of course, still on the board. Caleb Downs still on the board also, but this could be a potential landing spot for him at number 11 overall. The Dallas Cowboys trading up one spot to get to pick number 11 here. Got the Rams at 13, but right now it looks like you got Vega Wane, you got Akeem Messidor. If the Buccaneers want to go linebacker, you still have Jacob Rodriguez, you still have CJ Allen on the board as well. Kenyon Sadiq on the board too. So there's a lot of options still out there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have to see which one is still going to be on the board when they pick a few picks from now, pick number 15. And does Jason Light go with the edge rusher Akeem Messidor? Or does he trade down, or does he just pick BPA? So it's going to be interesting. If he trades down, you acquire an extra maybe second or third round pick, depending on how far you trade back. So if we bring up here, I went through a few trade down options recently in one of my episodes, and a trade down option, potential trade down option could be with the Pittsburgh Steelers if they want to come up for maybe an offensive tackle or for quarterback Ty Simpson. And the trade scenario I had here was Tampa Bay, of course, has to give up the 15th overall selection, but in return, you swap the first round picks. The Buccaneers move down 6 picks, pick number 21 overall now. But in return, they would get a 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick in 2027. So they require an extra 3rd round pick this year, a 4th round pick next year, just for trading down 6 spots. And maybe Akeem Messidor will still be on the board, but also maybe a defensive tackle will be on the board. There's a lot of the defensive tackle class in this year's draft class is not extremely strong, but you do have some solid top players. Up top there you have Caden McDonald, a solid run defender, guy who's going to collapse a pocket, help the other guys around him get to the quarterback. Let's see here. So the Dallas Cowboys move up 1 spot, and they trade 2 5th-round picks to do so. So the cost to trade up 1 spot is 2 5th-round picks, both from this year's draft class. So that's an easy trade for the Dolphins. They acquire 2 extra 5th-round picks, and all they have to do is move down to 1 spot. But who is this pick going to be for? Let's see. Flash Gordon says Bucs should get either a pretty good offensive line or defensive end at 15. We got to see who the Dallas Cowboys pick here at number 11, but Francis Mauigoa and Akeem Messidor are still there. Or trade down. Okay. All right. So Caleb Downs, safety, goes number 11 overall. And the Dallas Cowboys, again, jump 1 spot to pick over the Miami Dolphins, who maybe they feared that the Dolphins were going to go Caleb Downs. They pick Caleb Downs, and he's a very instinctive guy. He's a guy who reminds me of Antoine Winfield Jr. He's going to be a very smart guy, intelligent guy. He's an instinctive safety. You could trust him as a free safety. You could trust him in the box as a strong safety. You can even trust him at the nickel position. Remember early on in Antoine Winfield Jr.'s career, I believe it was his 2nd year, they had him at the nickel position. You can just find a spot for him, and he's gonna perform for you. All right, Flash Gordon says you're behind. Right now, I'm watching the ESPN draft coverage show here. So I don't know if you're watching potentially the NFL Network show, and they were a little bit ahead. But the Miami Dolphins are currently, their pick is in. Caleb Downs is walking out. So that's where currently what I'm viewing on my screen here. But again, Caleb Downs goes number 11. He was seen as the top safety on many people's draft board, including mine here. That still leaves, if you want to go safety, if another team wants to go safety, that still leaves Dylan Thieneman on the board. Of course, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo is still on the board. And then Trayden Stukes, a guy who's seen as now, his stock is rising as a second-round draft pick, is moving up to here in a 4.39 at the combine. So those are your other top 3 safeties outside of Caleb Downs, since he's no longer on the board anymore. And for the Miami Dolphins, their pick is in. So let's see here. Let's pick up the Miami Dolphins. Their pick is in, and we'll talk about the offseason that they've had so far. New head coach. They move on from Mike McDaniels. All right, so let's look at the Miami Dolphins offseason so far. Mike McDaniels no longer the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. They bring in Jeff Hafley, who was the defensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers. He comes in, new head coach. They bring in another Packer, not just to be their general manager, but another Packer to be their quarterback in Malik Willis. Malik Willis gets a 3-year, $67.5 million deal. He's going to be their new QB1. They trade away Jalen Waddle. So Jalen Waddle, speedy threat. They moved on from, of course, Tyreek Hill, who got injured last year, had a season-ending knee injury. You have Jalen Waddle also departing from this team, so they need help at the wide receiver position, of course. They also need help on the offensive line. That offensive line is horrible. If Jeff Hafley in his pre-draft press conference stated they want to build this team from the inside out, meaning through the trenches. They want to rebuild their offensive line, and rebuild their defensive line. And we could potentially see an offensive lineman be picked here. This is a spot that, fortunately, for the Buccaneers, we could see Vega Wane potentially go off the board here. If the Dolphins want to go for a big offensive lineman, a big tackle, you can go Caden Proctor. But this might be an offensive lineman being taken here, or a wide receiver. If you think about edge rusher too, he's in Miami already. Ruben Bain Jr., number 12 overall. He's a guy who so far is sliding. He's a guy who could be in consideration for the Buccaneers, number 15. If they feel like his past reckless driving injury or incidents are not something that's a part of his character, like a character flaw, you could see Ruben Bain Jr. go off the board. He does have short arms, of course, shorter than ideal arms, but they've taken guys with short arms before. Kalijah Cansey, Luke Gedeke, who plays right tackle. I talked to Shelton Quarles, who is the senior director of football operations for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I asked him about players with shorter arm lengths and how the Buccaneers view them. And he says if they can play, they can play. So if they're good at what they do, the Buccaneers look past arm length. They do have, prototype sizes and arm lengths and all these kind of things. But if a guy can play, sometimes you become blind to the arm length issue. You just take a really good, solid player. Flash Gordon says, I'm switching between Peter Report and you. Thanks for watching, buddy. We'll get to this comment in a moment here. They do go with the offensive tackles. So Jeff Hafley talked about building this team through the trenches, and that's what they did here. They they draft at number 12 overall. They move down one spot. The Cowboys move up one spot, and they take the big 6'7", 340 plus offensive linemen. They need offensive line help for Malik Willis, and they get that with Caden Proctor. Wow. Okay, so I think that was expected to go offensive line. They could have gone skill position. They could have gone with a skill player, but I think the smarter thing to do for them is to go with the offensive lineman. In this case, the tackle, Vega Wane could have been an option for them also there, but they want to go with tackle. Vega Wane, of course, a interior offensive lineman. So let's pull up Caden Proctor here. $352 pounds for Caden Proctor. Big guy there. It doesn't matter who you have at the skill positions. I remember talking to somebody about this before. If you don't have the offensive line to protect that guy, what does it matter? If you look at a guy like Tom Brady, who was not mobile, anytime his kryptonite was pressure from the interior, pressure right in his face, because he really wasn't a guy who was mobile, really a guy who couldn't run around and scramble or make opportunities with his feet. He did it sometimes at the age of 44 and 45, but that wasn't his, cup of tea. That wasn't expertise. They go with an athletic, big offensive tackle to protect Malik Willis. And this is becoming interesting because Ruben Bain Jr. continues to slide down the board. Now, if you're blind to, we don't get to know all the intel, but if you're blind to the reckless driving incidents, he's a guy who, if you just look purely from a football talent standpoint, I mean, I have him as the top edge rusher in this year's draft class. He is a game wrecker. If you just watch him in any of those playoff games for Miami, it was him. Akeem Estor was doing some damage also, but it was him carrying the load, really doing a lot of damage, getting those pressures, being a menace both against the run and against the pass. So we got to watch here Ruben Bain Jr. potentially falling to number 15 overall. Again, he has the arm length issue, but the Buccaneers really don't care about the arm length issue if the player can play, if the guy is a really good talent. We got to see who the Rams pick here because the Rams pick is in. But again, Ruben Bain Jr., a guy to watch. He's another option for the Buccaneers. I think that would be a home run hit. We don't know about, again, the reckless driving incidents. He had one in 2024 that resulted in reportedly a woman getting concussed and eventually going into a coma and passing away shortly after that. There was a lawsuit. Reportedly was the charges against him were dismissed. But he did have another careless driving accident in 2025. So Ruben Bain Jr., a guy to watch here. We'll have to see. Yep. So Kayler says, what do you think of Ruben Bain? Again, Ruben Bain Jr. for me, he's my edge number one. But again, we don't get to see the intel in terms of what actually happened. We don't get to sit down with Ruben Bain Jr. and ask him exactly what happened, in this car. Reportedly, he was not going over the speed limit. But what happened? Was he, driving truly recklessly? Because that was the initial charge, but it got dismissed. There is a civil lawsuit, I believe, with the family that might have been settled by this point. But Ruben Bain Jr. is still on the board. If the Buccaneers can draft Ruben Bain Jr., man, I think they finally, Jason Light finally hit on an edge rusher because we've seen him try and swing with Chris Braswell Jr. in the second round. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka out of Washington. Yaya Diaby, who's developed into a solid edge rusher, but he's not an edge one. He's not a guy who's going to take over a game. He's a guy who's a 7.5 sack maximum type of guy. Let's see here. Yep. Gaylor says, if Ruben Bain can play, arm length shouldn't be an issue. He has a lot of power to his game. So he has speed and power. Jason Light talked about when they looked back on how they're valuing these guys. And sometimes, they look at these characteristics and they notice, sometimes they go with speed guys. Sometimes they go with just power guys. But Jason Light has, once he's looked back and kind of figure out where has he gone wrong with the edge rush position, he notices that the most similar trait for a good edge rusher in this league is a guy who can do both. He can win with speed or he can win with power. Ruben Bain Jr., a guy who can win with both of those things. So Ruben Bain Jr. is a guy to watch here. We don't know what the Rams are going to do. So the Rams are an interesting one who could potentially take Ruben Bain Jr. because of the fact that they're going to have to pay both their top two edge rushers, Byron Young and Jared Verse, soon. And those will be two massive contracts. You're looking at $40 million a year, maybe even for Jared Verse, $50 million a year. So they're a team that can draft Ruben Bain Jr. and let one of those two guys, I will let Byron Young walk when his contract ends or use him as trade bait. But they're a team to watch. And the Baltimore Ravens, they signed Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals. They were trying to trade for Max Crosby. That didn't work out. They ended up backing out of the deal, but they supposedly wanted to bring in both. So I don't know how they're going to make that work under the cap, having Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson. I think they're just trying to cover their bases there because of the fact that they backed out and trying to save themselves in terms of PR. But I guess he could go number 14 overall too. So we're on Ruben Bain Jr. watch right now. So we got a comment here from my wife, love you, Diana. She says, the level of production of your live show is superb. And I'm not just saying that because I'm your wife. LOL. Thank you. Thank you so much. I try to put in as much effort as I can to make this show look appealing, and I hope it shows itself. All right, so again, we have the Los Angeles Rams on the board. We have the Baltimore Ravens on the board. You still have Kenyon Sadiq. You still have Jacob Rodriguez. If you want to do a little trade down, you still have Ruben Jr. You still have Akeem Messidor. You still have Vega Wane. A lot of good options, plenty of good options for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as we reach their pick here shortly. But who will the Rams go with? Let's go through the Rams offseason up to this point here. All right, so for the Rams, again, they bring in Mike LaFleur to be their new, they move on from Mike LaFleur. The Cardinals actually brought him in to be their head coach. But Nate Scheelhaase. So Nate Scheelhaase is a guy who is a potential future head coach. He's a guy who had a few head coaching interviews this offseason. They traded away Trent McDuffie they traded for Trent McDuffie. The Kansas City Chiefs traded him away, and they went with Mansour DeLay in the first round. They signed cornerback Jalen Watson, and also brought in Grant Stewart, who was a former Buccaneers draft pick and special teams linebacker. All right, so the pick is in for the Rams. Again, this is important because we're reaching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick, and we're only a few picks away, 2 picks away, and you have still plenty of solid, good players. So right now, with these players on the board, Vega Wane, Ruben Jr., Akeem Messidor, do you want to trade down and risk one of those guys or a few of those guys that you really like being drafted, or do you stick and pick a number 15 and Jason Light goes up to the podium and say, we got our guy? Let's see Roger Goodell coming out here to the podium. The pick is in for the Los Angeles Rams. Whoa! Wow! The Rams go with a quarterback, Ty Simpson. They have Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford is a year-to-year type of guy. Every year, got to wonder, is he going to retire or not? And the Rams build and protect their future by taking Ty Simpson. He's a guy he's in a perfect scenario now. He's only a 1-year starter at Alabama, but if you watch that film, there's moments where you can see that he's raw. You can see that, he's overshooting guys like Jeremy Bernard, for example. But wow, he's a guy who, if you just watch him, he can throw it. He's not necessarily a down the field type of passer, but that short and mostly that intermediate part of the field, that 10, 15 plus part of the field, he can do some damage in that area. He's a guy he's not a dual threat quarterback necessarily, but he has some mobility to his game. But the Rams, they protect their future by taking Ty Simpson. He's a guy who can sit in that quarterback room now, learn behind Matthew Stafford, and learn from Sean McVay, the smartest mind in the NFL when it comes to offense. A perfect scenario for Ty Simpson. I know when the report came out today, when he was deciding whether to stay in college, because he had some NIL offers. Miami, for example, was willing to pay him $6.5 million to come to Miami for 1 year. He decided to turn that down, come to the NFL. And his father was trying to talk to NFL teams to see where did NFL teams see him on their draft board. Is he a guy who could potentially go in the first round? Because again, they want to protect, his status, where he's going. Because where you go, if you're like the 13th pick versus the 34th pick, the money changes. So every time another guy gets selected, you drop down the board, your salary is going to be less. Your salary decreases. And he's a guy who his dad was told by Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, that they saw him as a first-round guy. So they're like, all right, he's going to enter this draft class. And he does. And he goes to the Rams, who his father had a conversation with before. I mean, he could play. I was watching him again today because I didn't do a huge deep dive on this quarterback class, but there became a lot of buzz. Ty Simpson potentially go in the first round. And I want to be like, all right, Buccaneers don't need a quarterback, a quarterback one. But I just want to watch and be like, okay, what's this buzz all about? So I've seen, clips before of him when I was watching Jeremy Bernard and a few of their other players. But you just watch him, you see the upside in him. He looks like an NFL starting quarterback, but he just needs time. He's only a 1-year starter. He needs time to sit back and develop, and this is the perfect situation for him. And that leaves Vega Wani on the board and Ruben Bain on the board. So you're still going to have Akeem Messidor on the board. So you still have and Kenyon Sadiq. So the Buccaneers have plenty of good options here. This is big for the Buccaneers. Yep, Ty reminds me of Brock Purdy. I see that in his game too. But he just needs time to develop, sit back, and he's going to get that time with Matthew Stafford as a quarterback one. Again, plenty of surprise picks here. Carnell Tate to the Tennessee Titans at number 4. Arvell Reese to Giants at number 5. And get the biggest one, I think, here, 13 overall. Ty Simpson going to the LA Rams. This is a team that's in a win-now mode, but they know they got to protect the future. And they have to have their next guy after Matthew Stafford. They're in a position that every year they're wondering, is Matthew Stafford going to continue or is going to retire? And now, even if he does retire after this season, you have your quarterback in the future in Ty Simpson. And I like Ty Simpson. Man, this is a fun, interesting draft here. Again, this is not one of those elite, talented, top-end draft. This is a draft that the meat is really round 2, round 3, round 4. You're going to get some really good players in that area, day 2, early day 3 of the draft. But just the fact that you could throw positional value in some of these cases out the board. Just see, how do teams view, we all see these players, we evaluate them, but we don't know how the teams evaluate these players and where they have them stacked up on their draft board. Man, it's just fun to see which teams were really high on certain players, like the Tennessee Titans being really high on Carnell Tate, for example. Jordan Tyson going number 9 to the New Orleans Saints also. Number 8. All right, so the pick is in for the Ravens. The Ravens are picking right before the Buccaneers. So this has been a speedy draft. And we're going to get the pick in for the Ravens. And then your Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the draft board. If this is not Ruben Jr. or Vega Wani, the Buccaneers have really good options at number 15. Oh, okay. So Vega Wani is no longer an option for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but Ruben Bain Jr. and Akeem Messidor are both on the board for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, again, I had Vega Wani as my pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because depending on how the board fell, and if Jason Light wanted to take BPA, best player available, you put Vega Wani right next to Tristan Wirfs, and you have a incredibly solid offensive line, a offensive line for many years if you can bring back Cody Mauch and extend him, and you have Vega Wani on a rookie deal. You have your book and tackles solidified in terms of their contract. Now, Ruben Bain Jr. at number 15. Look, the pick is in for the Buccaneers already. Wow. I think this is Ruben Bain Jr. They did not trade back. Their guys on the board. Bucs are going to take, and Flash Gordon thinks the Buccaneers are going to take Ruben Bain Jr., and I think they're going to take him. He is my edge number 1. Jason Light has gotten so much criticism, of course, and it's rightfully so, for his misses at the edge rusher position. But this, I think it ends right here with Ruben Bain Jr. I think Ruben Bain Jr. is going to be the next player drafted here by your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't think we could have expected Ruben Bain Jr. to fall to number 15. Now, this could not be him. This could be somebody else because we don't know. The pick is in, but we don't know the pick yet. I'm trying to stay off the social media. But he is there, and the Buccaneers can take, in my opinion, the top edge rusher in this year's draft class. Just watch his film. He is a game wrecker. He is a menace. If he kind of reminds me from the edge rush position in terms of his dominance as Aaron Donald. And I'm not trying to say he's Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald is a Hall of Fame player, but just the way he could take over a game. The Buccaneers need a true edge number 1 who can take over games, who can be headaches for any team in the NFC South, plus any team they're going up against, especially in the playoffs. His play actually got better as the season progressed and into the playoffs. Working with Jason Taylor as his defensive end coach, the former Hall of Famer who played with the Miami Dolphins. Wow, wow, wow. They do not trade down because surprise pick Ruben Bain Jr. is still on the draft board. Jason Light After all his misses at the edge rush position, he can probably put that to bed here with Ruben Bain Jr. going number 15 overall. If that is the pick, we have to see. Wow, wow, wow. All right, so Flash Gordon. This is a big moment. The Buccaneers are on the draft board. The Buccaneers are up, and the pick is in. Flash Gordon says, I honestly haven't even studied Bain, much Bain. I've always assumed Bain would be taken in the top 10. Yeah. We don't know if this is going to be the pick necessarily, but if the Buccaneers feel okay with his incidents, if they've interviewed him and they talked to him and they feel like everything's good with his reckless driving incidents, if they don't think that's an actual, indictment on his character per se, then I see Ruben Jr. being the pick here. And what a pick that would be. What an amazing pick Ruben Jr. would be. You have your edge of the future now, opposite of Yaya Diaby. And Yaya Diaby is a guy who Jason Knight wants to extend. This is a incredible opportunity for the Buccaneers if they go with Ruben Jr., number 15 overall. The consensus was Akeem Messidor. Akeem Messidor is a really good edge rusher also. He's one of the top 5 edge rushers in this year's draft class. But who was the top edge rusher at Miami? Who was the one who was dominating games? Who was the one who helped the Miami Hurricanes reach the national championship? It was Ruben Bain. He was the destructor on that team. Wow. This is a surprising draft, and the Buccaneers find themselves in a position where Ruben Jr. is sitting right there for the taking at number 15 overall. Yep. Obese 30 says Bain sitting there waiting 100%. I think this is a pick. Kayleard says Ruben Bain, it's not complicated. I don't think it's complicated. I think that's why the Buccaneers put that pick in right away. Now, there's a commercial break that slows things down, but they put that pick in right away. And Flash Gordon says, I'm going to go study Bain Jr. Go study him. Trevor Sikkema from NFL Stock Exchange brought this up, and then you go back and you notice it. Sometimes the Miami Hurricanes would have this odd front on the defensive side of football where they have in certain run plays because they trusted Ruben Jr. in terms of his run defense. He's a guy who's an every down defensive end or an edge rusher. They would put him on one side of the defensive line with Keontae Scott, who's a nickel corner. And they're both really good against the run. And then on the opposite, you have 2 guys on one side. The opposite side would have 3 guys on one side. You would have Akeem Messidor and the other Miami Hurricanes defensive linemen there. And they just trust, like, hey, you either run against this way, let's say, for example, the left, and you're going to run into Ruben Jr. or Keontae Scott. Or you're going to run the opposite way. You're going to run into 3 Miami Hurricanes who are waiting for you there. I mean, they just trust him that much in the run game. The pick is in here for the Buccaneers. Another commercial break, but wow. Who would have thought? Months leading up to this moment, who would have thought Ruben Jr. would still be on the draft board now? They can go in a different direction, but Ruben is right there for the taking. I believe he's going to be the guy. It'll be Ruben Jr. working opposite of Yaya Diaby. You have Kalijah Kancey, who's healthy. He's back from that torn pectoral that he suffered against the Houston Texans week number 2. You have Vita Vea, of course. You have Ashawn Robinson and that defensive line. Now, the Buccaneers need another linebacker, but I don't think this is going to be a linebacker pick here. I think they address linebacker in round 2. I believe this can be the Ruben Bain pick. All right, let's see. Yep, they're talking about ESPN talking about here. A lot of pressure on Todd Bowles. This is a crucial year for Todd Bowles. He needs a guy who can get to the quarterback right now, not a guy who can get to quarterback in 2 or 3 or 4 years. He needs a guy right now, and Ruben Jr. or Akeem Messidor will both be that guy for you. Whoa, it is Ruben Bain Jr. Wow. Ruben Bain Jr. goes to the I don't know if you guys can see me here. Don't know what's going on here, but Ruben Bain Jr. is the pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers needed to go off a defensive line. They need to get an edge rusher, and they get an edge rusher here with Ruben Bain Jr. Wow. Jason Light found his guy. I don't know what's going on here with my camera, but Ruben Bain is the pick for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yep, again, we talked about the shorter arm. Look at Jason Light celebrating with Todd Bowles. We talked about the shorter arm length issue for Ruben Bain. Cash Patel is another player who has those shorter arms. But again, I talked to Shelton Quarles about this, Senior Director of Football Operations. He said, again, if these guys can play, they can play. And the Buccaneers look past that arm length issue if they're truly a great player. Wow, they found a guy who can also, you don't necessarily need to blitz. You can just rush four now. You have Kalijah Cansey, who Levante David on the Pivot podcast talked about. He's a guy who, he is the, let's see here. Let me see if I can fix this camera issue because I want you guys to be able to see. And this is a tremendous draft pick for the Buccaneers. Jason Light has finally hit. Now, we don't know if these guys are actually going to amount to anything, right, in the NFL. You got to wait and see. But he finally, it seems like he hits on a edge rusher. What a big moment for the Buccaneers. Ruben Bain Jr. still on the draft board. They get him. They pounce on him. And he is their edge rusher of the future, working opposite of Yaya Diaby. Let me try to fix this camera issue. Apologize for that, guys. But big moment for the Buccaneers. How do you guys feel about this moment? Yeah. So Flash Gordon states that I'm tempted to say Ruben Bain is a kind of low center of gravity guy. Yep. Saying he can do anything he puts his mind to. Yep. This guy is all business here at the draft. Yep. This is a tremendous pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me see if I can fix this camera issue real quick. All right, we switch our camera. We're trying to still provide some video content here for you guys as we're going through the draft. So again, apologize for the having to change the camera angle here, but let's see if we can bring it back. Okay. All right, so huge pick here. So now the next step is who is going to be available in round number 2. That's the next watch. Does Jacob Rodriguez go? Let me try to throw this down here. Nope, let's go this way. All right. Okay, so Kenyon Sadiq goes to the New York Jets at pick number 16. We heard that they wanted wide receiver help, some receiver help in this year's draft class, help out Geno Smith. They go with a big playmaker in terms of his athleticism, Kenyon Sadiq. So he's off the board now. They went BPA. We heard oftentimes who was being mocked to the New York Jets was Omar Cooper Jr., but they don't go Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. They go with Kenyon Sadiq. So the next question is, who is still going to be available for the Buccaneers entering the second round? So we're looking at guys like Jacob Rodriguez, who I know is a Buccaneers fan favorite. We're looking at guys like you have Jacob Rodriguez. You have Malachi Lawrence, who I've heard that Malachi Lawrence is a guy that the Dallas Cowboys really like at spot number 20. So that's a spot to watch there. They need an edge rusher. Of course, they traded Micah Parsons last season to the Green Bay Packers. And they got a first-round pick in return for that. Is look at Kenyon Sadiq. Kenyon Sadiq was one of those players who the Buccaneers want to go BPA, and Ruben Jr. was on the board. He could have been in contention there. Freakish athlete. He's a guy who you can use in the backfield, and the slot in line, because he gives you as much as he can as a blocker as well. You can use him in the screen game. He's just a very versatile tight end for you. All right, so again, the next few draft picks is just really wondering who is still going to be on the board entering round 2. Jacob Rodriguez, Malachi Lawrence for the Buccaneers. If they wanted to go back-to-back edge rushers, I don't see that happening. So the big thing is linebacker, but also defensive tackle. So the Buccaneers can be targeting a defensive tackle early. I believe Jeremy Fowler. I could bring up that report here from Jeremy Fowler. This came out yesterday or the day before, that the Buccaneers were interested in taking a tackle in this year's draft class. Let's see Fowler's intake right here. All right, so this comes from Jeremy Fowler. He is a ESPN insider, and he says the Bucs are open to trade. Well, let's skip down a little bit more, because we know that they did not trade because Ruben Jr. was on the board. But he says the team will likely attempt to add defensive tackle early, but could surprise based on best player available thinking. That was the case last year when the Bucs took wide receiver Mecca. So they took the best player available, and the best player available was Ruben Bain Jr. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm excited in training camp to go see what he can provide. I'm also excited to see how early to put him as the starting edge rusher, because you want him to adjust to the NFL speed. You want him to get as many first-team reps as he could possibly have, because he's going to be working as Tristan Wirfs, an all-pro at right tackle, an all-pro at left tackle, and Luke Gedeke every single day in practice. So this can be really good practice for him. But the Buccaneers look to add a defensive tackle according to Jeremy Fowler. So in round 2 or round 3, you could potentially see a defensive tackle being taken off the board. If they want to go with one of those earlier defense tackles, maybe in round 2, you're looking at a Lee Hunter. You're looking at a Caleb Banks potentially still be on the board. Those kind of guys. I picked number 46. I picked number 46 for linebacker. You're looking at a Jay Goldie type of player, or potentially if they trade up a little bit in the second round, or if he doesn't go in the first round, Jacob Rodriguez. So we'll see as the night continues. Right now, the Lions are picking at number 17 here. Again, we got to pivot. You always got to be flexible. The camera went out, so we're going with our other camera here. But again, the Buccaneers add to this edge rush room. And let's go to Flash Gordon here. Flash Gordon says he's kind of a bigger David Walker. So David Walker coming out of Central Arkansas, smaller school, but this is a big school prospect out of Miami, went against top talent. David Walker is a guy who could do it against the run, do it against the pass. He's not, but he hasn't proven it at this top level, at this level of competition yet. Now, Yadi Abi and Ruben Bain Jr. will be your top 2 edge rushers. Al-Quadri Muhammad, who the Buccaneers signed this offseason from the Detroit Lions, is your third edge rusher. He's a guy who the Buccaneers talked about. They like him. They think he's most productive as a rusher over the guards. So not necessarily on the edge at times, maybe in a nickel package, you have him inside at at defensive tackle in that interior defensive line. So you push him inwards in a nickel position. And you have maybe Kalijah Kancey, another good interior pass rusher next to him. On the outside, you would have Yaya Diaby and now Ruben Bain Jr., who the Buccaneers have selected with their 15th overall selection. Great pick for the Buccaneers. Let's continue here. Flash Gordon says, if only Kalijah Kancey can stay healthy. That is the big issue, of course, with Kalijah Kancey. His goal last year was he wanted to be the top edge guy, the top sack guy in the NFL. But now his goal is he just wants to play 16 games is it now? 17 games. He wants to play the entire NFL season and not miss a single game. So Kalijah Kancey, if he can stay healthy, he provides a huge boost from the interior as a pass rusher. Vita Vea getting older, but he can still provide for you. I believe he's entering his contract year in 2027 also. So the Buccaneers have to decide, how long he's going to be playing. Is he going to start doing 1-year deals? How is that position going to look? Let's be going Flash Gordon here. I'd argue to go with defensive tackle, the second-round pick. So, yeah, according to Jeremy Fowler, the Buccaneers are intent on taking, it appears, taking a defensive tackle early. Now, the only thing is, if you take a defensive tackle early in the second round, now what are you going to do at the linebacker position? Because at the linebacker position, you have Alex Anzalone as, of course, your new quarterback of the defense, with the Buccaneers seeing Levante David retire. But you have Alex Anzalone now as your top linebacker. But then who's going to start next to him? Is it Savasi Dennis, who struggled last year as a first full-time starter? Is it Christian Rosebin, who was, had an up and down season himself for the Carolina Panthers? The Carolina Panthers had a huge need at the inside linebacker position. This is why they went off and signed Devin Lloyd to a huge, I believe it was 4-year, $62 million deal, something in that range. And they didn't have Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson's competing to make it on the 53-man roster. He's more of a special teams guy. But there's not much, there's not much depth in that linebacker room, and you don't have a clear starter right now. Right now, it'll be Savasi Dennis competing with Christian Rosebin. And the Lions go with a offensive tackle. We heard that they were really high on Caden Proctor, but he went earlier off the board, and they go with a offensive lineman himself. Blake Miller, who a lot of people potentially saw earlier on this process, potentially as a round number 2 guy, but he comes in around number 1 to the Detroit Lions at pick 17. They lose Taylor Decker, the Lions do, but they fill that offensive tackle need with Blake Miller. All right, so Flash Gordon says trade up for A-Rod. Trade up potentially for Rodriguez. That could be a potential thing in the second round if he doesn't go in the first round. And then Jason Light is ready to go to be on the podium. I'm going to watch that. All right, thank you for watching, Flash Gordon. And I think also right here, this will be a time when we close out the show here too. We did have the technical difficulty here, but again, Jason Light goes with Ruben Bain Jr. He takes a top edge rusher on the board in Ruben Bain Jr. They found their guy next to, working opposite, of course, of Yaya Diaby. And now again, as we close out round 1, I'll watch the Jason Light press conference also here right now. But as we close out round 1, who is still going to be on the board when we get to round 2 tomorrow? We're looking for Jacob Rodriguez to potentially still be on the board. If the Buccaneers want to double dip at the edge rush position, maybe a guy like Malachi Lawrence, but also those defensive tackles, Caden Proctor, Christian Miller, Peter Woods, those guys, Caleb Banks as potential round 2 targets for the Buccaneers if they want to go defensive tackle in round number 2. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to close out the show here. We had a technical difficulty, but we made the most of it. We were very flexible. I appreciate you guys for watching. I'm your host, Dana Morales, signing out. And I hope you guys are happy with Ruben Bain Jr. coming in for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Thank you guys so much.